elderly people. I mean, you know, these are great stories, but there are obviously a lot of untold stories. And what should we be thinking about collectively?
Well, I'll start with the most obvious one, and the numbers. Sometimes I am befuddled at how little attention seems to be paid with where we're going in terms of numbers. And I do a little bit of the statistics at the very beginning. There are a lot of senior citizens headed our way. I mean, the baby boom bubble, which is moving through, it looks like a cobra that has eaten a mouse. There's been this engorged section of the population that's moving through to older age. By the year 2050, 1 out of every 5 people in this country is going to be over the age of 65, approaching 70. And the population of the United States is growing at such a rapid pace. They estimate, the census estimates, by the year 2040, we're going to have 430 million people in the United States. We're at 311 million now. You apply that 20% to that 430 million figure, you're talking 90 to 100 million senior citizens. The costs of housing, medical care. So, you know, you look ahead and you start saying to yourself, how are we going to pay for these kinds of things? Look at what's going on right now. So I would love to become a part of that discussion at some point. It is not just about, my first job was to get people to know the senior citizens more than they do. I still feel we don't. That's my mission, if you want to call it that. But then where we go from there in terms of once we do that and really being advocates for older people, I would love to be part of that. You have a question over here?
Hi, my name is R.C. Gates, and I'm Ollie Gates' daughter. And I know he's married to his company for sure, I know. But transitioning, did you ever hit on perhaps how they transitioned or when they thought they started to transition? Or I heard you mention something about a mirror. Do they not look at themselves in the mirror when they pass by? Do they,
Did you read what your father said about that?
No, but I'm his daughter.
Well, I'm not saying that line came up, but your father said something really, I had it ready to read, but I don't think we have time. One of the questions I asked, it's one of my favorite questions. I will say, okay, Ollie, I asked him this. Forget about your aches and pains. I don't want to hear about anything. I don't want to hear about an E or whatever. In your mind and in your heart, what age do you feel like? And I purposely laid it out because I love watching the years work of people. They fired right away. I'm telling you, this is like one of those things. 100% of the time, people in their 70s, in their 80s, and in their 90s, they will say, I feel like I'm 40. I feel like I'm 30. I had one woman tell me she feels like she's 8. She had a very specific, she's my copy editor actually, she's 81. Feels like she's 8. One guy in Oklahoma City, Phil San Antonio, when I asked that question, he said, Harry, what you're asking me is if my home didn't have any mirrors, what age would I feel like? Which I loved. And Hugh Downs is in the book. He talks about, well, everybody talked about that question. And your father said just some more. He talked about the giggle-eyed and the Google-eyed.
Right,
Do you
right.
know?
The muddy water, I can tell the giggle-eyed from the Google-eyed.
He said he loves to pay.
The muddy water, right?
I didn't ask him what he was talking about. Yeah. Should I read it quickly? Yeah. After you, wait a minute. Because it was beautiful. I love this.
How's he doing?
Oh, he's doing great, and he doesn't complain at all because he's got so many projects that he's working with, so he doesn't have time to complain about it.
All right.
Thank you.
Your father, and I'm so happy you're here.
I'm glad
Your father said to that question, 40 years old. And his quote, I have a heading quote, he goes, 75 years old? That's when I interviewed him, so it was a few years ago. It's like gravy now. But the quote that he said, I said to him, I asked him, what's the best thing about being older? And Ollie said, I always say that I can look at a fish through 10 feet of muddy water and tell a giggle-eyed from a goggle-eyed, and both of them are perched.
Yeah.
As an older
You've heard
person,
that before.
Several times, yes.
he goes, as an older person, you can look a little deeper than the average kid. Because they're just looking right here, and he pointed to his nose. But as an elder, you can look a lot deeper, a little further forward. And I think that's probably what I enjoy about being older. People may think older people aren't informed. But let me tell you, older people know what's going on. They know. Someone may try to pull a fast one, and I kind of smile into my sleeve and I say, they think they're doing something, putting something behind me. But no, I read long ago, I gotcha. That's exactly what you said.
You said it yesterday.
I love that.
Anybody else have a question?
I'm impressed to see the age diversity in the audience this evening. I suspect you are too. I don't consider myself old. I hope I never consider myself old. I've been watching the Occupy Wall Street movement, and I spent some time with the Occupy KC people down near Liberty Memorial the past few weeks. And I'm impressed to see the age diversity there. It's the young people in the 20s who are taking the lead. They're the people that are spending the night out there in the cold. But there are an awful lot of 60 and 70 and 80-year-old people who are right there with them, especially on the marches that they hold occasionally. And I know that's not a question, it's more of an observation, but I'd advise you to expand upon that observation.
I'm going to expand on your non-question. Here's the thing. I just gave up in Toastmasters. It's a group that I joined a couple of years ago. I just did a speech and I did some research for it. And it was about voting. And you probably are not going to be surprised to hear that the most engaged group of voters by age group are senior citizens. I think the percentage in the last two presidential elections was a little over 70% of eligible voters in that senior. I think it was 70 and above were seniors. Very informed. If any politician thinks he or she are going to do something and hurt the senior population, they're going to be in for a rude awakening. Because I'm not even talking party at this point. As a group, they're very, very powerful and very involved. So I'm not shocked when I hear, and I've seen the news too, enough to see that there are a lot of people in their 60s and 70s. Now, people in their 60s, would that have been am I doing the quick math here? Is that the Woodstock generation? Come on, they've had training. And they had better music. Yeah.
Did you have a question?
I'm really interested in how many of the people you interviewed talked about death and were comfortable with that and brought it up, because sooner or later, I guess that's what we're all going to face, so, except of course myself. And so that always fascinates me, how comfortable were the people that you talked to, or did they even talk about it?
Some people did. And there are a couple of people in the book, and they're in the religion, a lot of the religious chapter, the spirituality. I mean, Emma is I call her my grandmother. I mean, it's a woman with my family, and she, if there's no fear of death, I mean, Maxine Dyer, I can go through the people. It came up, there were people I talked to would say that they didn't really fear it. Now,
What percentage would you say brought it up? 20, 80?
Not too many people brought it up. I mean, they know, people said, especially if they were moved to not so much an assisted living, they knew that this may be their last stop. One person said, I didn't come here to go someplace, it comes up, but I didn't get real, that's a personal thing. Some people, that's an interesting subject.
Well, like masturbating isn't?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, but the death issue, let's face it, that could be, and I didn't do this in this book. I was not trying to answer the question of why we maybe pull the shades down on seniors. I would guess that a level of that, or an element in that equation, is that people fear their own demise, and they don't want to look at it. But that wouldn't explain why in other cultures, people don't treat seniors the same way. And I'm not picking on America. I love this country. I don't want to live anywhere else. But I am curious as to why that occurs. And I think death, I'm maybe jumping around, or I am jumping around here, but Apple, who just got Steve
Jobs.
His quote that everyone picked up on at Stanford commencement, he goes right for it. And I've said this. Many of my friends have heard me say this. I'm going to die one day. I know it. It's a fact. We all know it. And I don't want to get morbid, but that, if I can remember that inspires me to just say, carpe diem, that whole feeling of doing it. So you see that with a lot of the people. But there were a couple of people who expressed, they have fear of it, but didn't want to really talk about it. And I didn't want to push too hard in those situations either. It didn't come up a lot, though.
Thanks for advocating for this amazing group of people.
Thank you for thanking me.
Anybody else? Maybe that's something we know. Thank you very much.
I think it is. Thank you. Listen, thank you everybody for coming, and please tell your friends. I mean, this is a very grassroots.
Harry will be out there signing books.
Yeah, I'll be out there signing books and saying